You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 39. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about the evolution of your practice. That's going to happen. I don't care where you are in your own practice ownership journey. And we're going to do that with a conversation with Allie Boehm. Allie has made the transition from solo provider to group provider and way beyond that. Lots of good stuff to talk about today. And I hope you will stick around to the end because there are so many juicy takeaways all the way through. It's that good. Yeah, it really is. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome back to the podcast. This is Wendy Pitts-Reeves. I am so happy to be here with you guys today. How are you doing? What's life like in your neck of the woods? I hope it's awesome. I hope you are starting the new year off in all the best ways. As the day I'm recording this, it is a beautiful, dry, cool January day here in East Tennessee. The dogs have wanted to go out a lot more today. And for good reason. It's really nice outside. I hope it is where you are as well. I wanted to take a moment just to introduce our guest today. Today, you're going to meet Allie Boehm. Allie is a licensed massage therapist who has a practice in Steamboat, Colorado, but she's so much more than that. I met her through an online group devoted to entrepreneurs, and she asked me to come on a podcast that she has, which you'll hear about later. And I spoke with her audience about how to think like a marketer, which is kind of a tricky thing for massage therapists, turns out, just as it is for all of you as well. I know. So we had a great conversation, but as I got to know her a little bit, I wanted to know more about the evolution of her practice over time, the evolution of her business, and the journey that she's been on, because it's super interesting. And I think there's a bit of a roadmap here for how all of us evolve and grow as business owners, as clinicians, as healers, and as human beings. So there are lots and lots of juicy takeaways today. I hope you will stay with us all the way to the end. Allie is just delightful. It was so much fun to talk with her. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So let's get in to the interview. All right, everyone. Hello and welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the podcast. This is Wendy, and I am so excited to have you here with me. I have a real treat for you today. I have a guest on the show that we have been trying to get together for a while, honestly. This is like our second or third try to do this, and which says something about persistence, honestly. It is my real pleasure to introduce you to Allie Boehm, who is, among other things, a massage therapist in Colorado. I'm going to let her, we've got a lot to talk about today. I'm just going to start by just bringing her on and letting her say hi. So, hi, Allie.
Hi, Wendy. It's so great to finally connect and to be here today.
Finally. We had tech troubles before. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
So, Allie, tell everybody like who you are, what you do, where are you, those kinds of things.
Yeah. So I'm Allie Boehm, and I live up in the mountains in Steamboat, Colorado. And I'm a massage therapist. I went to massage school and graduated as a massage therapist in 2008 and started my own private practice pretty much right out of the gate. And it's had all sorts of evolutions. And, you know, I've gone from working just as a one-woman entity to having staff, having up to 15 people working for me.
Wow.
I've taught classes at a local massage school. And then kind of the most pertinent thing that I'm doing right now is I have a online business that's geared towards massage therapists called the Massage Business Mama. And it's a resource for massage therapists really in all stages of their career to help them thrive as therapists. And also really my mission is to elevate the massage industry. And so a lot of the work I do is around just that process of, making sure that we have all the tools that we need to be successful and present ourselves in the most professional manner.
I like that, but I also like what you just said about elevate the industry.
Yeah.
Right? Elevate the industry, because that's kind of how I feel about social work. Same thing exactly, right?
Yeah.
So you started off in private practice just in a solo office, just you by yourself with your clients in '08?
Yeah. So right out of school, I actually had a job lined up before I graduated from school. So I had come up to Steamboat for an internship, and I had done an internship at a PT clinic here. And while I was doing that internship, I was asking everyone, like, where should I work and stuff when I get out of school? Where's the best place to work? And there was a spa that everyone kept recommending. And so I went up and I spoke to the manager, and she hired me pretty much, before I'd even graduated, which was really exciting. And then at the same time, I was slowly building my practice. So when I first got started, I was just renting by the session from another practitioner. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I would rent her room for $15 a session until a year later, I was finally ready to have my own space.
I'm laughing because I started off renting space from a psychologist for $10 per session. Okay. Yeah, okay. 100 years ago. Yeah. What a hoot that is.
Yeah, for sure. It was funny. It worked for the time being, but it was funny because she had things like neon mirrors that had like glowing waterfalls that like made music in the background. And she had like little baby dolls in the corner of the room she had some clients who their kids would come in, and like, it was all just really off-putting for me. So I was so excited that first office that I got, that I was able to paint the color I wanted and decorate it the way I wanted. And all of that.
We don't talk about that very often, but there is a thing about sharing space with each other. It's like, there's the issue of decorating. There's the issue of energy and style,
and cleaning too. Who takes on that responsibility?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm interested in, actually, one of the big things I'm interested in, is kind of the thread of how things have and continue to evolve for you in practice. So you've been in practice for 14 years, right? You've been in the field for 14 years, and from the sound of you, you have sort of recreated yourself over and over and over again. You're constantly expanding in who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
Which I love. So let's start. And y'all, for those of you who are listening, the reason I want to talk about this with you guys is because Allie and I met through an online group that caters to or teaches folks about online business. And from the beginning, when I first heard about her work, I realized how different she is, because she also stands out in a field where people don't always think about all the different ways that you can serve and all the different ways you can make an impact in the world and all the different ways you can make money, to be honest. So I wanted to sort of explore this with her a little bit so that you guys can get some examples from someone other than me about all the different ways that your practice can evolve over time, and how you as a business owner can evolve over time. So I'm really curious to start off with, Allie, about going from a one-woman show, borrowing somebody else's office with neon waterfalls in the mirror, which is very funny, to, no disrespect to that person, that was their style, that's fine. Yep. But from that to 15 staff, you grew a group practice that had 15 folks at one point. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because as you talk about this evolution, this is something big that I teach is that we have to look at what we want our lives to look like, and then create a business that fits into that versus doing the other way around. And right. So I just love that you bring up this word evolution, because for me, it's been such an evolution, and it's been an evolution that has largely occurred based on different circumstances in my life, like getting married, having a child, even, the pandemic. I kind of, when I was in massage school, well, backing up a little bit even further, I went to college, and I was an art major in college, and I got a business minor. And I always kind of knew that I wanted some type of a business. I was never quite sure what that business was going to look like,
Really,
but
you were thinking that from
I
the
knew.
beginning because I was not.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I mean, it's just kind of in my blood. Like all of my ancestors, my grandparents, my dad, like they've all worked for themselves, had their own business. And so
Okay.
it was just a part of what I was used to, what I was accustomed to. And, I saw the benefits of working for yourself and having some freedoms that other people didn't have. So,
Mm, mm.
and that business piece, it just always was really interesting to me. So I got my business minor. I graduated from college. I wasn't doing a whole lot. I was kind of floundering. And my mom finally came to me and said, why don't you go to massage school? You've never thought about anything consistently other than massage school and becoming a massage therapist. And I
Oh,
think
so
you
that
should
had
just
been
go
there all
for it.
along because I was kind of curious
Yeah.
about that. Like, what led you into
Yeah.
this to begin with? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I like to stay up late, and my mom would always let me stay up later if I massaged her. And like, that was kind of like something. But my dad he was adamantly opposed to me becoming a massage therapist. And so I hesitated for a long time because of his hesitation with it. But when she encouraged me, it was, one of those like great mom moments where you're like, thank you for being right on and for knowing me so well and helping me to find my path. And so I went
Huh.
to massage school, and pretty much from the beginning knew I wanted a multi therapist practice. I had some ideas. I had like a 50-page business plan that I graduated school all ready to go with.
Wow.
And
Okay, so
you
that's
know,
unusual.
it's very unusual.
Yes, that's unusual. For those of
Um,
you who don't have a 50-page business plan, don't beat yourself up.
and you
Allie,
don't
this
need a
is
50-page
no, you
business
don't.
plan. It's obscene. It was crazy. But I was excited. And so I kind of hit the ground running, but knew I needed to supplement when I got out of school. So I had this idea that I wanted to have staff. I wanted to have retail. I wanted to have classes. I wanted to have all these different things. And so,
Sort of a full service agency in a while, in a way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I kind of, got started for a couple years doing, the building the practice while working at other places. And actually what happened was a gentleman, his name's Chad. Chad approached me and he said, I want to work for you. And I wasn't quite to that point where
Hmm.
I was seeking out staff to hire, but he approached me and I thought, okay, this has always been my plan. And
No
so
time like the present.
yeah, so
Huh.
I went for it, and he was wonderful. He worked for me for a number of years, and it was really great. But it was challenging as well.
So
um,
did you take him on as a W-2 right off the bat
I
or as a
took him on
1099?
as an independent contractor,
Okay.
an
Okay.
independent contractor, and pretty quickly after taking him on, I took on more staff, and that was right about the time when I expanded into retail and classes. I was doing a lot of classes. So I'm also a certified herbal therapist. And so I
Oh,
was doing a lot of classes around herbology and creating tinctures and creating infusions and just things that really brought the community in.
hmm.
And I would say I wasn't making a ton of money from these things, but it was giving me a lot of exposure to the community
So
and
let me
really
ask you
helping me
about
to
that
make a
real
name.
quick. So did you have, were you renting an office space at that point or had you bought a building at that point?
Yeah.
How?
So when I moved out of the neon light place, I moved into there is a Victorian house downtown in my town, and I was just renting to begin with. I was just renting one room
Okay.
in that uh, building, and
Mhm.
over the course of the years, I ended up renting every spot in the house
Okay.
in some capacity, and it kept kind of evolving. And my landlord was incredible, and he would do things like gradual rent increases as I was starting to bring on more staff and take on more risk. And um,
Got it. So you had this old house, this beautiful old Victorian house that you
yeah,
were sort of slowly growing into,
yeah,
and you had people coming on board as contractors, and then you were doing classes for the public around the herbology, which was a way of kind of getting them in the door and getting
correct.
them to know you. I wasn't sure what you meant by retail. Like in massage therapy, what is retail? Like that's
Yeah,
what.
so for retail, I did have a lot of herbal products. I also had, soap and lotions and
Oh, wow.
candles and clothing. I had a lot of clothing for a while. I had self-care tools like Theracanes and foam rollers and rad rollers and things like that.
Okay, that makes sense. I love that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And so it was
Um,
exciting and challenging in some ways.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And I did have, eventually I hired like a reception team and an office manager. So I had a combination of independent contractors and employees.
Mm.
And it was the staffing, the personnel, it pushed me, it challenged me, it taught me a lot about managing people and how to create an atmosphere, a team atmosphere where people work together, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and how to create an environment where people were excited to come and they wanted to be there and they were excited about what we offered.
Okay, so this is important, I think, because this is a lesson I've learned fairly recently. So this is about leadership.
Yeah.
You're talking about leadership. Now we talk about
Yeah.
management, but it's really leadership. So which is something I don't know that people talk about when they talk about building a group practice. I think I have underestimated over time how important that is. I've seen some examples where folks aren't comfortable with leadership or don't understand that that's something they need to learn. And when you grow a group practice, you're not just bringing a group of friends to hang out with. You're running a business, and that's going to involve some uncomfortable moments, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
really do have to lead in terms of difficult conversations, in terms of setting policies, in terms of handling the money, determining how you handle the finances, all that kind of stuff, and creating an environment and a culture that is the kind of place you want to work in, the
Yep.
kind of place you want to be proud of, and that still takes care of you as the owner. So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily an easy thing, is it? That's right.
No, it really isn't. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I always recommend if people are thinking about bringing on staff is to sit down and write out like the philosophy of what you want your business to be and the expectations that you have for your staff, and to have all of that in writing so that, like you said, oftentimes when we get into, as practitioners, we have friends who are in similar lines of work, and so we think that we can just easily hire
Hang
friends and
out.
stuff, but
Right.
it's different. The boundaries are different. And so having all of that clearly written out and being able to hand over a document that says this is everything that we want to embody here, I think
Yeah.
that's one of the key elements of helping people be on the same page and making sure that you're working together towards a common goal.
Hiring the right people, bringing people who fit what you stand for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's really painful. If you have someone in there who doesn't align with your vision, if they don't have the same ethics and morals that you do, it is really hard. It's hard to have them there because, like you say, we spend so much of our time in our jobs, and we want to be fulfilled in our jobs. And if you have someone there who isn't aligning, it's going to be really hard to be fulfilled. But also, at some point, you're going to have to get rid of them, and that is not fun either.
Yes.
I remember
Yeah.
the first person that I had to let go. I was sick for like 2 weeks. I got so sick, and it was like, okay, this could have been avoidable if I had prepared in advance some of these documents and made sure that they were on the same page.
Oh, Allie, I so can relate to this. When my last so-called real job was as the director of family therapy at a residential treatment center, and I ran a staff of about 10 or 12 family therapists. And I had to fire people a couple of times, not often,
Yeah.
but a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I was nauseous for days before
it's
that,
awful.
like literally nauseous. Yeah, I totally get that. In
Yeah.
my private practice, I haven't had to fire because people didn't work for me. It wasn't that kind of arrangement. But I have had times when it wasn't a good fit, and learning how to handle that and how to weed that out on the front end so that you don't like there's a lot to that. So
Yeah. Well, and I think,
Yeah.
when we have someone in our organization that doesn't fit, it's kind of like a cancer.
Yep.
It kind of spreads to other
Yep.
people. And so the the quicker you can get rid of whatever it is that's causing the turmoil, whether it's, I mean, maybe it's just a conversation that you need to have about like, hey, I'm sorry, but I don't think this was communicated real well up front. Like, can we communicate this a little better? Is that going to work for you? You know, it might not be letting someone go, but just opening up those lines of communication. But the quicker that you can do that, the quicker that you can cut out that disease from your organization.
Yes, because it will poison your whole place before you know it. It sure will.
Very quickly. Yep.
Yeah. You're speaking from experience.
Yes.
Yes, I get that. I totally get that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's bringing back memories. Okay. Yeah. So you learned. So this was part of your personal evolution, right? As a one minute you're just a massage therapist helping people feel better. The next, almost, Lord, I'm responsible for all these people. And they're not all doing things the way I want things done. Dang it. Right? Or they're not doing things the way I think we should be in this business. This is what we stand for.
In some cases, it's like, you know, I started to hire after a while. I started to really hire for attitude. Like, you know, if they had a good attitude, even if their hands-on skills weren't up to par with the standards of the practice, I was like, I can teach hands-on skills. And so that was towards the end. And that was really rewarding. Was I would have therapists who would come in who maybe hadn't had as much schooling or hadn't mastered one element that was like really important because that's what, you know, our clientele really sought. And so I would hold these workshops for my staff on various different techniques and procedures and, you know, just helping to elevate them in terms of their hands-on skill level. And that was so much fun.
So you were a clinical trainer. You were teaching clinical skills, essentially. Yeah. Right. So you're also a natural teacher, it sounds like.
Well,
you were doing classes for the public. You're doing classes for your staff. Like that's in you. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for me. It's all a challenge though, right? I mean, like all of these new things that we take on, we have to learn new skills to embody them. And, you know, it's like, it helps to make life more rewarding when you're able to step outside your comfort zone and do things that push you a little bit. So.
Right. Amen. Yeah. So, okay. So do you still have that group practice now?
No, I don't. No. So what ended up happening, I got married, I had my son, and then I got divorced. And I had sole custody of my son. I still have sole custody of my son. And it was pretty overwhelming. And I had started building my online business, the Massage Business Mama. And I was really passionate about this online business. And so this was all right before COVID hit. It was like, I didn't have time to manage the staff the way that they needed and be the mom that I wanted to be and nurture this online business that I was growing. And so I made this conscious decision when COVID hit, because I was kind of at a breaking point right then. I made the decision to downsize my practice, my physical practice. I really had no desire to micromanage a staff through what was to come, all of the unknowns. And, you know, and I had some staff who had very different viewpoints of COVID than I did. And, you know, to figure out how to mesh that, it felt way more stressful than I wanted to take on. And like I said, you know, being a single mom, like I wanted to be a good mom too. And I wanted to have this business that fed the type of lifestyle that I wanted. I wanted to be able to volunteer at school events and go mountain biking midweek with a girlfriend and all of these things. And so I liquidated the inventory in my business during COVID and, you know, let go of all of my staff and, you know, kind of tried to help them transition into different roles. And a lot of them ended up opening up their own individual practice, which was really great. It was really fun to hear a lot of them say, you know, I never had the confidence to go out and do this. And this was kind of the push I needed. And so
I love that.
I know it was so much fun to watch that evolution for them. And then isn't
that a great example of how something happens that's terrible and it ends up actually being the motivator for something that's actually better?
For sure.
Right. For sure. So you really closed the whole thing down. Like you emptied the place, sold the furniture. Like
I did.
Wow.
And then I moved into a one room office in a different office building.
Huh.
And, I still have my hands-on practice. I still see my own clients, but really I leaned a lot more into this online business.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. So, because that happened before the pandemic, you were already heading that way.
Yeah.
So you were moving into being a single mom and wanting to make sure that that went the way, like that was priority.
Right.
You were sort of over managing the group. Like, okay, that was fun for a while. I'm done
Yeah.
with that now.
Yeah.
What made you already start moving towards online, even before the pandemic? You were already headed that way.
well, I mean, this probably ties into my divorce too. I think, you know what I think happened? I think that I was going through my divorce and my son was pretty young at the time. He wasn't even 2 when that whole process started. And it was like, I had these hours at night where it was like, I could either binge watch Netflix or I could do something like really exciting, like trying to build an online business. And so it was just purely a byproduct of me trying to channel my divorce energy into something positive.
Oh, well, that's, you could do worse. That's fine. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
You are such a serial entrepreneur.
yeah, I get a
You
kick
really
out
are.
of it.
Yeah, it shows.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're already like, maybe I'll just do this too. All right. And then the pandemic happens and life changes. And all of a sudden that becomes even more important.
Yeah.
So you simplified your personal massage therapy practice.
Yep.
And then what?
And then, like I said, I really leaned into this online world. I created the biggest thing, like Wendy said, we met through kind of an online school of sorts. And it was really focused on creating online courses. So that was my big thing. And that is my big thing. Massage in the Real World. It's a course that helps massage therapists who really don't have a whole lot of business experience at all, maybe have never had a private practice at all, and they're wanting to build their own private practice. So it walks them through all the steps necessary to create this business that they can love and
Enjoy.
and enjoy
that supports them
and can thrive. And yes, all of that good stuff. So that was a big thing that I leaned into. And then another thing that came out of all of this was a membership that I have for massage therapists in all stages of their careers. And it's really a membership geared on helping to motivate people and challenge people and educate people and give them community. So if they have questions or if they just need support during a particularly rough thing that's happening in their business, they have that. And so that's called the Massage Momentum membership. And so those are kind of the 2 big things that I'm really focused on now.
So the course, Massage in the Real World, I love the title, is basically about helping people start their practice, right? Get their practice off the ground and all the things they need to know. And then from there, you also have the membership group for community support and additional training, I'm sure, as well.
Yep.
So, in your own practice, you said that when you had to shut everything down, which would have been that would have been a really tough decision, I think. The world is shutting down, everybody's struggling, and here you are, essentially one of the business owners who's having to let everybody go.
Yeah.
But the fact that you had taught them so much in the time they'd worked with you that they were able to land on their feet and do their own thing, like that's power and influence in the best way, isn't it?
Oh, it's so incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
So cool to see these people thriving. And, some of them have switched industries and aren't doing massage anymore. And,
Because
maybe
they
that
evolved
was a good decision for them. But yeah, it was super rewarding to see that.
So it makes perfect sense to me that you took that kind of energy online and that now you're doing the same thing with people all over the place. You're no longer limited to the folks that you know in your own town in the beautiful hills of Colorado. So I love that. There's so many things I love about this. I love the fact that you've said a couple of times now that you wanted to design a business that supports you instead of the other way around, that your business needs to work for you, which is why I call this ideal practice, because what's ideal for one person is going to be different than it is for somebody else. And I really do feel like the mistake so many of us make is designing. We think we mold ourselves into our business instead of molding our business into our lives. So I love that. So now, so you're still keeping a little practice going. You're still seeing a few individual clients of your own. I love that. Yeah. So tell me about this, what about the work that you're doing now and kind of because I know even now you're still sort of like, shifting things a little bit, changing your mind a little bit, testing new ideas, like where your business is now.
I guess one thing that's really interesting, like in my private practice, my hands-on practice, is that I'm at a stage where I'm not trying to grow my private practice. And I think that all therapists at some point, most therapists get to that point where it's, if they've been doing it for any length of time, they get to a point where it's like, I don't need to grind so hard to get the clients. I don't need to grind so hard to have new contacts. Really, I need to pare things down. And I think that's part of that evolution and part of those boundaries that, for me, like, honestly, it's embarrassing how long it took me to figure out I needed to have more boundaries around my work and my life. And, I mean, I feel like, my son was a baby and I'm still working nights and weekends. And like, these are things that we shouldn't be doing. But we do. All the time. We do. And I think so often we fall into this trap of this scarcity mindset. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we try to bend over backwards to meet our clients' needs. And really, it doesn't serve us. And when we take a step back and say, okay, I'm not working nights, I'm not working weekends, we've realized that those people that we thought weren't going to be able to see us, they can come and they can see us in the middle of the day. They can see us on their lunch breaks. They can leave work a little early. They can come in a little late. And that we can create businesses that work for us. And so I feel like that's kind of what's happening now in terms of my hands-on work, is like, contrary to a lot of popular advice, I don't have online booking. And part of the reason I don't have online booking is because I don't want new clients coming and filling in the appointment times that I have available. I want to make sure that my regulars are able to get in. And so like, that's one thing that I'm leaning into. And, just realizing that you don't have to do everything the way that you think you're supposed to.
Well, I was going to ask you kind of like what the biggest challenge has been for you and what do you feel like you've learned along the way? And it sounds like this is part of it, that you have the right to do your business the way you want to do it.
Totally.
Whether everybody else does it that way or not. And
another thing, Wendy, too, another big challenge that I think, and this comes back to that scarcity mindset, is like, not all clients are created equal. And when we choose to nurture a relationship with a client who doesn't treat us right, maybe a client who doesn't show up for their appointments, a no-show.
Yep.
We are not allowing space for someone who's going to realize that our time is valuable and appreciate that our time is valuable and, treat us with the respect that we deserve. And so I think for me, it's all about the boundaries. That's been my biggest challenge. And the scarcity thing, like, it's so interesting because I went through that scarcity mindset with my hands-on practice and learned all the lessons around boundaries and creating what it is. And then now with this online business, I have to learn all of those same lessons again.
Dang it.
Dang it. Hey, scarcity, like we're still, I need to make sure that I'm setting up the online business to fit into my lifestyle. And that's getting back to that mountain biking. I was mountain biking with a girlfriend yesterday. And I told her, I said, gosh, it's taken me so long to embrace that the reason that I have my own business is so that I can do this. And
so you can live and live the way you want to. Yes. Yeah. So I want to put a pin in this a little bit because just a few days ago, I was listening to a podcast about travel and how to travel and keep a practice going. And one of the, actually a former client of mine was being interviewed on this podcast, which tickled me no end. And she was talking about how she had rearranged her practice so that she could travel like internationally, like in a big way now, and still be taking care of her clients. And I was listening to her talk and I thought, how cool it was that she had learned that lesson. And I know how hard it was because I worked with her. So I know what was behind the scenes, what went into that. And she was talking about it like it was nothing, but it was not nothing. Yeah. I know it was not nothing. And that whole concept of what if I don't want to see people in the evening? Do I have to see people on a Saturday? What if I want to take a month off once a year?
Which is what I've done the last 3 years. I've taken a month off every summer, and it has been so refreshing and rejuvenating, and something that years ago I didn't think was possible. I didn't think that I would have clients that would be cool with me coming back a month later.
They're thrilled. They're just glad you come back.
They are. Yep.
Yes,
totally.
They are.
Totally.
So you can set your hours. So things about boundaries, your hours is part of that. And I see this all the time in the therapy world. People who and I think in massage therapy, I've seen some of this too. And it's such a physical. The work is so physical, and when people are cramming in way too many people in a day, the toll that takes on your body. Much less your spirit and your energy. But I know all kinds of therapists who will see 8 and 10 people in a day and not take a lunch break.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy.
But I mean, I'm guilty of forgetting to eat lunch all the time. It's just, but it's, how do we prioritize those things? How do we take time to meditate on what is important so that we're making sure that we are creating?
Yeah. So what besides time, your hours, what other ways have you had to learn how to set boundaries in your practice? This is a great subject to kind of poke around in.
Oh, what other ways?
How does that lesson keep coming up? Because it is true, like whoever we are is who we are. And whatever our particular thing is, it's going to show up in our business. How you do anything is how you do everything. So whatever your issues are, your business is going to show them to you over and over and over. And what you said a moment ago, is so true, that even as your business evolves and a lot, you've learned a lot at this point, you know how to do this stuff, you still come back to those lessons all the time, right? So how are you learning to set boundaries today? And I'm going to guess it's not just about time. It may be about your pricing, maybe about your policies, maybe about the type of people you work with.
I mean, I think a lesson that has come up time and time again, but I don't experience it a whole lot now, is around those no-shows and charging for those no-shows. And, that's hard, especially when you've been working with someone for years and years and years, to say, okay, like, that's fine that you didn't come, but like, I need to be compensated for that time. And so the last couple of years, I've had a few instances where I have had to implement that. And in one particular case, it was a client who'd been coming to see me for years. He also we had a little bit of a dual relationship. He had also helped me with he was a contractor. So he'd helped me with some manual labor projects in my practice many times over the years. And so, those boundaries were blurred a little bit. And I think that's probably something that I do struggle with, especially living in a small town, that there are a lot of clients where I have these blurred dual relationship boundaries with, because, they're also my contractor. They're also my hairstylist. They're also my
I live in a small town too. I totally get that. Yep.
Yeah. And so this particular client, he was a contractor and had been working with me for years, and he didn't come, and he was notorious for, just kind of pushing that relationship and not treating it with the respect. And so I said, fine, but you're going to have to pay me. And so he paid me, and he has not been back in to see me since. And this is the fear that I think prevents us oftentimes from not implementing those boundaries, because we're like, well, what if he never comes back? Well, you know what? He hasn't come back, but it is so all fine. It is so okay that he has not come back. Like, I appreciate him. I like him, but I'm not struggling to fill that time slot.
No, and you don't miss it.
And I don't miss the energetic drain, because I feel like our energy is our number one most valuable resource, and we need to protect it.
Yep.
And if we're taking on these clients who don't respect us, our energy is affected.
100%. And if you don't have that, you don't have anything. Absolutely. Right. So how has that evolved for you over time? Like what did your policy used to be? What is it now? Has your policy changed, or is it just your enforcement?
The policy has never changed.
Okay.
My enforcement of that policy has changed.
Okay.
And maybe it does get back to time, Wendy. It's like, I don't have time to mess around Like I got big stuff to accomplish in my life. I don't want to be drugged down by that, and like, I don't know, just kind of having that awareness around my time is valuable and that I don't deserve this, and fully feeling that. Like, I don't know in the beginning stages of my career if I felt that as much. I think I was a little more insecure in my role, and so it was I didn't feel as entitled to the things that we're all entitled to as business owners.
Yeah, and the word entitled is a loaded word, right?
Totally.
We're taught to not like that word, and yet, I think it's like so much more than that. I think this is such a core issue. At some point, I'll probably do a whole episode just on the no-show thing, because I see it as like one of the number one ways that healing arts professionals lose money, lose respect, and totally have that energy drain. But I'll take it even a step further. I think when you don't enforce that policy, that you're not serving your clients, because they need to be there.
Yeah.
They need to be there. They're not going to get better if they're not in the room doing this work with you, whether it's massage or whether it's psychotherapy or whether it's any other kind of work. And I knew it. I worked briefly with a therapist one time in another city who had a 50% no-show rate.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
It was the word. That was the most extreme I've ever heard. So anyone who listens to this show for any length of time, you will hear me say that a lot, because I always go back to that, because it was the most extreme I've ever seen. And yet I've seen that concept all the time.
Yeah.
And what I see is that people will, even when they do enforce it, they're like, well, just, you only have to pay me half.
No.
Or, as long as I can see you again this week, it's fine. We don't have to do it. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Full price, because you were there. You took a shower, you drove to your office, you brushed your teeth, you're sitting there. Nobody else is going to fill that time in that short of a window. And like, you missed out. Like, someone else could have booked that time. You're prepared. You spent the money on gas. Like, you charged the full price.
So do you make any exceptions to that? Like, what if they had a flat tire on the way there? Their kid is sick. They have a headache.
I would say, especially in the height of COVID, if there was like sickness related things, then I would often, and I mean, I would ask for, if it was an hour's notice, certainly no, but if they gave me 12 hours notice that they were sick, that's a little different. So yes, there are a little bit of wiggle room, because I feel like there's times when I want grace in my life as well.
Right.
Right.
But it's not your default. It's not where you go first.
It's not the default. It is definitely not the default. And, like I said, I don't miss the clients who treat me like that. I like the clients who they no-show for some reason, and they call me and they say, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. Charge my card.
Right.
And then they rebook for the next week.
Right.
And they're happy to see me, and they have no hard feelings about having to pay for the time. That's who I want as a client.
Right. Right. So I would say this is another kind of leadership. This too is leadership. What this is doing is it's showing your clients who you are, how you work, what the boundaries are, and what to expect when they work with you. And I don't think it hurts them. I actually think it serves them. If you have very clear policies up front, I need to let you know, this is how I do things. This is how things work here. I understand that things come up every now and then. However, you need to know that when they do, this is what's going to happen. I still will have to charge you for that time because I'm here. I've saved that time for you, et cetera, all those kinds of things.
Well, I think what you're saying, like, it's helping them to take the treatment more seriously.
Yes, it
is.
If
they're taking the treatment more seriously, they're going to get better results from it.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
So, I mean, if that's the only thing that helps it be better for them, like that's huge.
That is huge. That is huge. And the person I was talking about a minute ago, she worked with a pretty seriously ill population that dealt with a lot of very heavy duty depression. So, they don't feel good. They don't feel like coming in, but they're not going to get any better if they don't come in. Right. No. So it's really interesting to me how easy it is for us to misunderstand this, I think. Like, we come at it because the kinds of folks who do the kind of work we do, we care about folks. We don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to be a burden on anybody. And our default position is, oh, I'm so sorry. But we do that for others. We don't do that for ourselves. And clear communication, clear boundaries, clear expectations serve everybody. You ran, I mean, in your group practice, you said, I began to hire on attitude. Yep. And you had to learn, you said you wrote up that whole thing about this is how things work here. This is what we stand for. It's the same idea. When you lay all that out for people, they're like, okay, I know where I stand. I know what this is about. I understand. And they will they'll respect you. They'll pay you. There will be no hassle factor. And you know what? I don't know about you, but my feeling about that is like, it doesn't hardly ever happen. I hardly ever have a no-show or a late cancel. But when I do have it, I'm like, great, I just got paid for an hour to do paperwork. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Well, I had to be careful with that attitude because I think that was a crutch for me for a while, where it was like, I had all of these other things that I needed to be doing on top of my hands-on work. And so I would I think I got a little too comfortable being like, oh, I can work on payroll for my staff, or I can work on cleaning this, or I can work on, my online class that I'm, whatever it was. Yeah. And oh, no big deal. And so I had to take a step back from saying that to myself. Yeah. Because it was enabling me to have bad behavior around my boundaries.
Right. I can do something else, but I still need to get paid for that time. Right. Yeah. I love that. So it's interesting to me that, well, I'm curious, was that just a gradual evolution for you, like an awareness over time that you were just kind of tired of putting up with it? Or was there a moment when you were like, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm going to start charging people?
Wendy, I think what really started to push it for me was when I had staff and when we would have no shows for my staff. Yeah. And isn't this interesting? Because it was me feeling protective of my staff,
of them,
not protective of myself. So, that's a little harder to translate when you're a solopreneur, but I think that was for me, it was like, I'm like, I need to protect these guys. I need to make sure that they're being compensated for their time. So
what a hoot. That's mama. That's mama energy to me. Yeah, it's like, you can do this to me, but you can't do this to my people.
For sure. Yeah, totally.
And now you can't do this to me either. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I love that.
So and I think, for anyone who's a mother, like, I think that our kids often are our biggest teachers in how we should be treated. Like we see stuff that we won't stand for our kids, and we're like, well, why should I stand for that for myself?
Right. Absolutely. As a therapist, I've often said, if I can't get a woman to do it for herself, she'll do it for her kids. It's like, okay, I'll take whatever I can get. If that's where we start, that's fine. Yeah. So baby steps. Baby steps. And then sometimes some giant leaps along the way. So tell me, I'd love to hear what a typical, this just occurred to me. I'd like to ask this. What is a typical week like for you now?
Yeah.
Today.
So right now I'm training for a marathon.
Oh my gosh.
My first marathon. So I have been doing three and a half days of hands-on work. And then I have one day that I have really dedicated to a long run. So right now I'm up to 18 miles is where I'm at in my training schedule. So that, I'm a slow runner, so that takes me a while. And then when I get done with my running, then I focus on my online business and typically spend like a day and a half with, a few half-hour stints interspersed within my hands-on days working on my online business. And then I don't work weekends. And so I've been camping every weekend with my son. So I bought a van and we go camping most every weekend. So
how great is that?
A typical week.
So 3 days, give or take, at 3.5 in actual client work, a day on your online business, and then a day running. And around the edges, there's camping and mountain biking.
Yep, exactly.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's great because 10 years ago, I didn't think that I could take 2 days to not be doing hands-on work. And yet.
And a month off in the summer.
And a month off in the summer and not working weekends. And
Yeah. One of my very first coaching clients was an energy healer who was working 6 and 7 days a week and got sick. Physically sick because she was doing so much. So in your coaching work, you now today, like me, you teach other massage therapists how to run a private practice that is successful and healthy and fulfilling. what would you say is maybe the biggest mistake or lesson or issue that you see your people dealing with that you want to get into them, that you want to teach them, that you want to shift for them?
I think that it's really important that we focus on what we can do and not what we can't do. So I think that it's really easy in the beginning to get overwhelmed with all of the to-do items and maybe to get stuck in a little bit of paralysis because you're like, how the heck am I supposed to do all of this? And how are the clients going to come? And when will the clients come? And this isn't paying off. And I'm spending so much time and energy here and there. And so just to say, okay, I'm going to focus on what I can and not what I can't, and take one step in front of the other and to constantly evaluate what's working. And then to spend more time on what's working and less time on what's not working.
I love that. Yeah. Don't waste your energy. Right. So I'm in the middle of reading a book called 4,000 Weeks. Have you heard of it? Mm-mm. Yeah. I'll mess up the author's name if I say it, but I'll link it down below. But it's about the concept that 4,000 weeks is apparently how many weeks we have to live if we live to be 80. I think that's the concept behind it. But his whole principle is, instead of thinking about how much can we cram into our lives, we're never going to get it all done. There's no amount of productivity in the world is going to get it all done. Instead, it's about what are you not going to get done? What are you going to choose not to do? Actively choose. Yep, letting that go. Because this is what I want how I want to spend those 4,000 weeks.
Well, and I mean, it's true. Like, I just actually had an interview with a gal about Google My Business. And one of the questions, it was for my membership. And one of the questions that came in with my membership was, how often should I be posting? I'm posting once a day. And this expert was like, oh my gosh, I haven't posted on my Google My Business for 3 years. And it's still serving me. And so like all of that time and energy we put into these things that we think we're supposed to be doing, whether it's constant social media posts or once a week blog posts or, whatever it is that we think, networking events, if it isn't working, if there's something else that's working better for you, shift your attention. Yeah. It's okay to change.
Yeah. It's okay to change. It's okay to evolve.
Yeah. That's
the theme for today. It's okay to evolve. I feel like I come up with something new. I used to say every 3 years. I think that's speeding up. But who we are and what we want to do now is always going to be changing, because we grow and we expand and we try new things. And so I love that. So what you're trying to do is help your people realize they don't have to do it all at once. They don't have to do it all at all, period, actually. Yeah. Be kinder to themselves, give themselves some grace and some patience. And just, you can do this. You'll figure it out. I love that. I love that.
One foot in front of the other and focus on what you can.
You got it. So if folks want to, if we have some massage therapists listening to this or other types of healers, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about your work and about your programs and about, all that you're up to?
Yeah. So I am most active on Instagram.
Okay.
So it's at the Massage Business Mama. That's where you can probably see the most of my personality, if you will. And then my website is www.themassagebusinessmama. And there you can find links to, I also have a podcast. So Align with the Massage Business Mama. There's links to that. There's links and all sorts of things that you can find.
Lots of stuff
on that. Yeah.
Lots of stuff. Y'all, she's always up to something new too. She's always got something cooking. So I will have links to all of that down below. And it tickles me hearing Align with the Business Mama. Like you are a massage business mama. That's what you are, Yeah. I love that. It's uncanny, Allie, how many parallels there are between your story and mine. Honestly, I won't take up time here on this interview to talk about it. But as you've been talking, I've been thinking, me too. Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. It's funny how that is. It is fascinating, actually.
Well, I just, since the first moment we connected, I feel this like kindred spirit. And so I'm not surprised, Wendy.
I love that, actually. I love that. I love that. I'm not, however, a marathon runner. I will say that. Yeah, well, that part I'm not going to be doing.
But I'll come cheer.
Yeah. That's really awesome. So y'all, as you all are listening to this, the things I want you all to pay attention to is like a couple things I want you to notice about what Allie has said. I want you to notice that she's given herself permission to try things all along the way, whether she knew how to do it or not. I want you to notice the confidence that she brings to the table, and that you can tell from the way she's talking that wasn't always there, but it has grown over time. And it is by doing the big things that scare you is where that confidence grows. If I'm going to guess, Allie, if somebody had told you when you first got out of massage school that you were going to run a staff of 15 people at some point, you'd be like, oh yeah, no, Or actually you did say that you always sort of thought you would do something more than that, but you still had to grow into that.
Totally.
So I want people to notice the personal growth that you have experienced as a business owner, and how learning to set your boundaries, learning how to lead your staff, learning how to lead your clients, and now learning how to lead other massage therapists into a practice that works for them, how powerful that is and beautiful it is. And that doesn't mean it's always easy, but it's totally worth it.
Totally.
Right? And you stumble through it, you figure it out. You stumble, you figure it out. And every time you think you got it all figured out, there will be something else to learn, which is fine. That's how it is. Yeah. So is there anything else? And thank you for doing this today. This has been so much fun. I love it. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Me too.
Is there anything else that you want to say, or anything else you feel like we need to bring here to make this interview complete?
I guess the only thing is that I would just want to reiterate that our energy is our most valuable resource.
Yeah.
And that whatever you need to do to protect that, if that's making sure that you carve out that time for lunch so that you're properly, you have the proper nutrients in your body, or if that's cutting off that client who drains you, or if that's limiting your hours, or if that's setting up online booking so that you're not getting texts at night, whatever it is that's going to protect that energy, do it.
Perfect. I couldn't agree more. Y'all listen to what she said. Listen to what she said, because I see so many people not doing it that way. Thank you. This is beautiful. This is perfect. It's exactly what I was hoping it would be. You guys, I hope you all have enjoyed this even half as much as I have. And I can't wait to hear. I'd love to hear what you take away from this. Shoot me a DM, post a review, talk to me online, however you want to. But I'd love to hear from you. What do you, as you are listening to Allie talk, are there bells going off? Are you finding yourself going, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way? If there are, I would love to hear what that is for you, because that's what I'm all about. So thank you so much for being here, Allie. Thank you, everybody else, for being here as well. That's what we've got for you today. Have an awesome week, and I will see you next time. Bye now.